Hello and welcome back to another full, actual, real full-length episode of Only a Bag, the guide to Italian travel. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you. Yeah.
You may have noticed that we have a new cover, and I'm very excited about it. Woohoo!
Darcy made the cover.
Yes,
if you'd like to compliment us, please compliment Darcy. I can even give you her personal Instagram in the comments.
Just to boost my ego.
Yes. I think we did the last episode, that mini-sode was basically on the new cover.
It was a, hello, we are tired and cannot record a full episode. We're so sorry, and goodbye. Super
jet lagged.
Yes.
Yeah. We are super jet lagged. It's crazy coming here, which I realized at some point we should probably talk about, like arriving into Italy is kind of, if you're coming from the States at least, coming this way is really
rough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how. I know you and I have done it a few times where you take the 9-hour flight, try to sleep on the flight, probably get one wink, if any, and then, start your day anew when you land.
Yeah.
And there's always chit chat on the planes, about everybody who's a tourist doing that. And I don't know if I could ever do it again when coming from the US to Europe.
Yeah, I agree.
It is really difficult.
And because we've started basically just coming here, spending the night, but in Rome, usually where we land, or Milan or Naples, and just being like, that's just a lost day. We're going to land, we're going to go to the hotel, we're just going to nap. If we wake up, fantastic. If we don't, we will have a fresh day tomorrow.
Yeah. So kudos to all of you who do that. Yeah. I'm very impressed.
And that's just something to keep in mind for those of you planning trips who have not come east before. Because then going east is probably more difficult than going west. I don't know if it changes when you go around the date line, international date line. I don't know. I think you go back in time. I don't know how that works.
That sounds like a conspiracy podcast.
I know, doesn't it? I know. Even though it's really just that line out in the ocean somewhere.
When you go the opposite way around the world, you turn time backwards.
Exactly.
If you go fast enough, you'll go back into last year.
That is the dream.
So that's what the Illuminati say, actually.
This podcast has become an Illuminati podcast. I hope you're all prepared for that, whether or not you're willing for it.
Yeah, I actually don't know anything about the Illuminati, so.
The dollar bill, it's all there.
It has, in fact, become that podcast.
Yes.
Okay, but actually, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about the fact we have a new cover. So if you didn't see the last episode, this is your first introduction to the new cover. Darcy wanted, we both wanted, but Darcy made it with something with the Italian flag on it because a keen observer might realize that our previous logo and podcast cover did not have an Italian flag anywhere.
That
remotely
is
visible.
True. You're also still working on the website, revamping it. That is onlyabag.com. There's a lot of information there that we do talk about here, but there's also a lot of information there that just isn't like a fun topic for a podcast.
Yeah.
And some of your articles are written in a very fun Nathaniel way, and some bits are just facts. So if you want,
some are very sarcastic. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. But if you're a quick reader, or not, if you just want facts and information that are in written form, head over to onlybag.com.
Yeah.
And also listen to us. You can do both.
You could do both. You could read and listen at the same time. One of these days you can even watch us, but we need a new computer for that. So what are we talking about today, Darcy?
We're talking about restaurants and food. That's sort of right. Generally.
Yes, we are. This is Food
Italy.
Month, isn't it? I feel like we're a Great British Baking Show. And this week is Pastry Week.
Yeah.
I don't know what accent I'm doing.
But Food Month.
Yeah. So that's not as exciting. So we're going to talk about, and this episode specifically, restaurants and street food?
Yeah. Okay. Street food, fast food, quick
What
bites.
Is fast food?
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
exactly.
That's smart. So could you set the scene for us?
Yes, thank you for asking. Okay, picture this. You're walking along the cobblestone streets. If you're me, you're tripping a little bit. You maybe are more elegant. You're walking along cobblestone streets. A warm breeze blows through your hair. And you look up and see vine-covered buildings basking in the golden hour sunlight. Your stomach grumbles. It's time to find a restaurant.
Dun, dun, dun. And we're going to go find a restaurant with you guys.
Yeah.
Not actually. This is not like a live recording from a restaurant. That would be...
That'd be crazy.
It'd be fun, but I'd be like super loud or like yelling over people. Like, so here we are.
We're also both very introverted, so I don't think we could manage that.
We always want to do those Instagram videos where you're like walking around talking about what you're doing, but neither of us like being the center of attention. So I think neither of us want to be walking around filming ourselves.
Absolutely not. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I feel like it feels very embarrassing. I think I'm like, everyone's watching me. I don't anyone to watch me. I'd be a very good profession where I don't get watched. I feel like I'd be very good at that profession.
Okay.
I don't know what the profession is. I'm just like a thief. Yeah, I'd be great as a thief, or like a security guard. I don't know. Whatever profession people don't get watched, I'd be terrible at like all the other ones.
Anything where you're a woman, people just look right past you.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Wait, they look right past me?
Yeah.
Oh, I
because
like
people don't
okay.
acknowledge women.
I see what you're saying. I like you're going deep on that one.
Yeah, that was like just a scathing remark on society.
Yeah. I think it meant like how Italy's a little lecherous and just stares at women.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point too.
So 50-50.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
let's get on food.
Let's talk about restaurants and food. Okay. So
Oh,
do you
God.
want to talk about things to look out for, first of all, so you know what not to look for?
Yeah, I think that, yeah.
Because there's some big ones.
Yeah, I think let's do that. That's smart. That's a smart way to break it
So
down.
I have a list because it's things you and I talk about all the time, but I put them in list format.
I like that.
To be more organized. Okay. Number 1, if you see a menu that's in English or in Italian and English, that's a good sign that it's more of a touristy restaurant than or authentic or neighborhood Italian restaurant. If there's a giant menu, like actually you brought this one up the other day, you reminded me of this, like maybe as Americans we're used to menus
I think that's
full
the thing.
of
Yeah.
like, I mean, at the same restaurant, I feel like in America you could get like Chili's, you know,
That's what I was thinking.
like
Applebee's, Chili's,
burgers, yeah, exactly, burgers and steak and pizza and soup and salads
Yeah.
and like every possible thing you could kind of think of.
But I think that's the thing. Like sometimes it'll be different, like beef bourguignon as well as I don't know, like a plate of pasta as well. Things that are not like the cooking times are so vastly different.
Yes.
That it's just like some of this has to be pre-prepared or warmed up.
We went to a really fancy restaurant the other day. My father
we?
took us. Yeah.
Oh my
Not
God.
in Italy.
Oh, I was like, did we really?
Back in the
Rosalie?
States. And it was lovely, but it's kind of to your point, it's that it had like an Asian fusion vibe, but also Italian fusion, and all the foods came out at the same time. They were all delicious. But it wasn't a big menu. It was a small menu, but very diverse.
Yes.
And here in Italy, in authentic restaurants, you don't typically get a diverse menu. It's an Italian menu.
And actually, that's, if I may, like adding on your point, sometimes an authentic restaurant will have a giant menu, but not a diverse menu. And you can tell because it's like, I think almost like Chinese food restaurants are a great example. It's like shrimp with blank, shrimp with rice, shrimp with fried rice, shrimp with, shrimp with, those are all different things on the menu, but it's still just mixes of things that are also on the menu. Like I'm thinking here, it's like you might have some kind of meat with blank or some kind of pasta with blank. And it's just like, yeah, there's a lot, but it's not like fundamentally different dishes. It's kind of like, kind of mixes on dishes. But you're right. In like Rome, if you see a giant menu and you see like burgers on the same menu as a steak on the same menu as,
if you see a burger and a pizza and steak and pasta dishes, and especially if you see salads on the menu, if it's like multiple laminated pages of menu, that's not a very authentic restaurant.
Yeah. And I will say, if
likely.
I may also say on the English, that one is I think you put an asterisk next to it or something, because there are places that will have English menus, for a variety of reasons, but mostly obviously for tourism, but also because, English is kind of still the,
like the most common denominator of languages.
Exactly.
A lot of people who are not from
America, England,
English-speaking
Australia,
countries
Canada.
do learn English in school.
And I'm thinking, because even like for tourists from all over the world who speak some English,
Yes.
and I think that I want to bring that up because I think you and I have started noticing that when the menu's in like French and German and Russian and English and Italian, then it's like, oh, like this might be more touristy. But I think like now it's gotten to the point, because I think that one, like we've noted, or we've been told that if it's in English, avoid. And I think that was a fantastic advice pre-Google Translate, for instance.
Ah, okay.
Because I think like now post Google Translate, it almost takes zero effort to translate your menu.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, but I will rebut you in that I think some restaurants have taken it up a notch. Like I recently saw in Rome, basically a menu on a big stand in front of the restaurant, and half of the menu was in Italian, and it had the Italian flag along the side, and then on the other side it was all in English, and it had the UK flag along the side. that to me screamed
That screams tourist.
restaurant.
Yeah. I was thinking
Yes.
more like the
Like an Italian menu with underneath it written in
Yes,
English. That does
exactly.
happen. That's less of a red flag. You're right.
yeah, when it has like we'll have like underneath, because sometimes some of the things here will have underneath it, it'll be like pomodoro, basilico, formaggio, whatever, and then it'll be like in parentheses, it'll be like,
Tomato, basil, cheese.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's just something, because that's a good point though. If it's big, if it's gaudy, it's touristy.
Yes. So yeah, two things to look out for: English on menus, especially when it's super obvious, and giant, super diverse, multi-page menus. Something to look out for. Okay, next is this is a big one. Huge in Rome. I think it's bigger in Rome than some of the other major cities in Italy we've been to. Is like a maitre d'. I don't know what their title is, but someone beckoning you to come in and eat at their restaurant. Places that are authentic, places that are eaten at by locals, don't need someone asking to fill the restaurant.
Yeah.
So that means that they need the business, and it's most likely touristy. Not they need the business, but it's built to bring people in that way.
And I think some of those might be also commission based. Like they might be getting people, like, because I think a lot of restaurants have 50% of restaurants have some sort of maitre d', like have some sort of the host, basically, just like America.
Most restaurants do.
Yeah, exactly. And they might they wouldn't bring you water or anything here. Like as in America, they might bring you water or something. They're just gonna bring you the menu and maybe take your bill at the end and pay, and help you pay. But I think you're right. Rome, more than anywhere else we've been in Italy, have those people who are like, come on, sit. And they're like already pulling out the chair, and they're already like, gesturing. Those are always, for us, there's a bit of even sometimes like when the food looks really good, it's one of those like, I don't know. It's like, it almost like it doesn't, a lot of the good restaurants speak for themselves, I guess.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, you don't necessarily need the, and especially when, because
you don't need someone physically pulling you into the restaurant.
I feel like, is this a trap?
To eat there,
and some of those are not some, almost all the time. That's in touristy areas. Like if you're going to be like in a hotel in a small neighborhood, or an Airbnb in a small neighborhood, you're probably not going to see that. But I think
they're next to monuments or where tourists are going to be gathering. And that brings me to my next point is often restaurants where you have a view of a major monument that is popular. Those are going to be more touristy. Rent is higher.
Yeah.
They know that the people who are going to be eating there, like they know they're going to get people to eat there no matter the level of their food, no matter the cost. So I think by and large, the places where you can see a major monument that is, a tourist attraction, those restaurants are not going to be as good.
And I think there are, if I may also add two caveats to that. The first one is Michelin starred restaurants. I know we talked about that off mic a little bit. And I think that one applies also for menus in English.
Absolutely.
Because I think that basically a Michelin starred restaurant would have, a menu in English.
Yeah, because a lot of people are going to come to that restaurant who might not speak Italian. They're traveling to go to a Michelin star restaurant, and they're might likely speak English. Absolutely. And I think
the other one I was going to mention is it's very specific, but it's I'm actually like looking at my phone now and I can't find it, but it's in the in front of the Pantheon. There's a very famous restaurant. It's like one guy's name. It's like can't remember. It's like an Italian guy's name, basically. Antonio's or something like that. And it's really famous. Like I think Obama ate there or something like that.
Okay. Is it good?
It's phenomenal. That's the thing. It's like one of the best restaurants in Rome, kind of thing. And it just happens to be in front of the Pantheon, but it's been there since like 1960. Let me rephrase that. It's supposed to be phenomenal.
Okay.
We have not eaten there, but like a lot of the Roman food writers who live in Rome and write about it, that constantly pops up in there. Like if you're looking for like cacio e pepe, if you're looking for
exception to the rule, there.
Exactly.
That's good to know.
But that literally might be between that and there's like I think some sort of Michelin. There's a one Michelin starred restaurant overlooking the Colosseum. That would be the exception. We saw it once. We walked by at night. You could see all the chefs in the. They have like this lit up. I ended up looking up later. They have this beautiful lit up kitchen with all this glass under a terrace, and you can just see these chefs in these tall hats.
That was very cool.
Yeah, and
we didn't eat there.
We did not eat there, to be clear, but
it looked very cool.
And I think they're Michelin starred, and they are. Well, and I think I saw some video like they were serving pasta carbonara, but like in a martini shaker. Like they would come to your table, open their martini shaker, and everyone's like,
I don't feel good about that.
right? I'm like, no.
That's one we should add. Okay, I did. This wasn't on my list. If
Dumb
people are
food.
doing a shtick,
Yes.
it's probably not good. Oh my goodness, there's one that's going around Instagram, and I know I'm not the first to comment on it. Tons of people are like, that's not how it works. The tiramisu made tableside, like, and in the videos, like authentic tableside tiramisu in Italy. That's not how tiramisu works, and I'm sure y'all know that. I don't need to rant about it.
How does it
Tiramisu can't.
work?
It's
I don't
all
understand
it's deconstructed, right? So you
okay,
have all the
okay.
components, and then someone comes to your table, and essentially they just put all the components in the correct order on top of themselves, and then you eat it. But
Hate that.
it has to sit,
Yeah,
the tiramisu.
absolutely.
And I think in the video, in fact, the lady fingers, is that what they're called
Yeah.
in the tiramisu? Are drizzled with espresso, and it's a liqueur. It's something, right? In
Yeah,
tiramisu?
I thought it was just. Honestly, I thought it was just coffee. To be honest.
Maybe it is just coffee. We've
Is
had
it-
some that have
has liqueur in it?
Have
Like-
liqueur in it. But anyways, it's drizzled with a liquid, and those have to sit that way.
Yeah.
I think in
because
the
it gets
video,
soft. Otherwise,
yeah.
the lady things are quite hard and crunchy.
Exactly. And I think in the video, he just drizzles them on. Anyways, and it's like not the right consistency because it has to set, essentially, like the custard that's a part of the tiramisu
Makes sense. So you
should
can't-
set.
yeah, just
so you can't
custard.
you can't just make it at the table. Anyways, plenty of people have ranted about how that is incorrect. So if you see something like that, like a very shtick thing. I mean, maybe the Michelin place is an exception to that rule, but
I don't think it is.
I think there are a lot of places that you can see on Instagram where it looks really cool, like they're making something at the table for you. But that's probably not the authentic way. There are some places who make the cacio e pepe inside the wheel of cheese,
Yes.
and that can be good, I think, and that is a bit of a more of like a showstopper,
Yeah.
sort of a thing to do.
It's a little. I feel like it's still a little sticky because you
It
can't
is
get
still
like.
sticky.
Yeah,
It's
like.
still not the way it was always made.
Yeah, exactly,
But
exactly.
I think you can still get a good amount of cheese in there that it's still good.
Well, I was thinking because that for sure, but like I think sometimes you need like the pasta water to make it kind of a creamy
Right.
sauce, and if it's just in the cheese, you're just pouring pasta water into a wheel of cheese, and it kind of
I
feels
think
like.
that's exactly what they do.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't like it.
I
You're
don't know if I
making
like
a
that.
face.
I mean, I don't. It's like theoretically it sounds amazing. In practicality, I'm like you just have a wheel of soggy cheese. It's called Armando's, by the way. The restaurant in
place,
front of the Pantheon.
Okay.
Again, famous little place. Yeah. So I just want to throw. And in case anybody was listening to this, I'm like, oh my god, I want to go to that restaurant. What is it called?
Yeah.
Armando's.
Thank you. Armando's.
And so that's basically right in front of the Pantheon. But that's I think between that and like a couple Michelin starred ones, in front of some fancy places. But by and large, good food is hidden, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, or outside of the
Yeah.
major tourist areas.
Yeah.
Not even that far outside. I mean, within an easy walk. It's
Oh,
just
sure,
that,
sure.
They get the tour sites get very clogged with people, and nobody wants to sit eating their dinner amongst throngs of tired people talking about where they're going to go next.
100%. Yeah.
Even though we're all those people at a certain point, we don't want to
Yes.
eat amongst that necessarily.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, next. Fake food on display in front of the restaurant.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So many restaurants do this. And sometimes it's real food. So often it's fake food. Like an example.
I was going to say, like, some of the pasta dishes are real.
Yeah.
It's just something they made there. The pizza's real. It's just, but then they do like.
But some of them are fake. They're like really good plastic versions
Yeah.
of what
a
they're going to
pasta's
serve.
order. Yeah, it's really weird. Yeah.
I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
But that's not a great sign.
Well, the other weird sign is it kind of combines with shticks. There's a couple restaurants that have, one has meat cooking outside. Do you remember that one? It's like they have like a hot stone or something.
They
put
heat up a piece of slate and he was cooking the raw meat
Yeah.
on it. And it's the same restaurant. Oh my God, this restaurant has so many shticks that I almost want to eat there.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because it's odd. It's near Vatican City,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, so it's in Rome. Outside of Vatican City, so it's in Rome. And he had this little piece of like raw meat, like
Mm-hmm.
a little steak thing, sizzling on a hot slate
Yeah.
outside the restaurant. And they always have tons of stuffed animals,
Mm-hmm.
like on the tables and in the chairs outside the restaurant. And there's something else.
There's like fairy lights, which a lot of people are doing fairy lights. There are plants, I think, at every table. And there's like one other
But
little.
like plants.
Yeah,
Not like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
that's a nice flower or
No,
a
like
fern
tons of
or a
plants,
random thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's something else, and I want to say when Darcy says the hot piece of slate, it's not like hot in the sun, like out of the oven. It's like the smell of cooking meat is supposed to be what
I mean, it
draws you
smelled
in.
good.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what draws you in. More power to you. And I think too, one thing we noticed 2 years ago in Rome specifically, and I think we saw this a little bit in like Florence and even in Milan, are Instagram walls, which is what I like to think is what they're called.
Yeah.
But it's like the walls that you're supposed to take a selfie in front of or whatever it is, and it's like
Like a wall full of fake roses.
Exactly.
Like something that looks cute on camera.
Yeah. And sometimes they have the neon things of like hashtag what happens in Rome,
Right.
hashtag at this restaurant, hashtag never leave, or whatever it is. I don't know.
Hashtag chow.
Yeah, exactly. Hashtag chow. That seems like a big one. There's that like chow y'all. Speaks to the southern.
I'm not mad at that though.
Yeah, I know. You're hunting it down if you can find it. So that one I just wanted to throw out there because that kind of ties in with the shtick, but also with it's not fake food. It's just somebody grilling meat outside, but not like to serve. No one's gonna eat it. It's just
right.
for
Just
display
to bring
purposes.
people in. Yeah, absolutely. And my last one is, it's kind of a 50-50 situation on this one. Restaurants that open before 7 p.m. for dinner.
That's a good point.
I think that my sense is that used to be a bigger no-no. Now it seems like, especially in major travel seasons, this is my guess, my sense, restaurants will be open for lunch and dinner, and sometimes they'll be open all the way through because people from different places want to eat earlier. Italians eat, the earliest Italians will eat, it seems like, is 7. In the north, it can be earlier.
I think it's like 7 is even in the north. It's like, yeah. And that's like weirdly early for a lot of it. To the rest of Italy, that's like, what are you like? Are you okay?
Yeah, in Rome and where we are, it's like 8:30.
The more south you go, the later it'll be, basically. 9:30, 10 in like Sicily.
So if a restaurant that only serves dinner opens before 7, that's not a great sign, but it's also, I would say, look for some other indicators, because that's not a absolute no. It might just be open from lunch to dinner and people aren't going home because they live in a big city and blah, blah, blah. They're just working through,
I will say, of all the good restaurants we've been to, all of them are closed between lunch and dinner.
Okay. There you go.
Because I'm thinking like all the ones that were like, that was fantastic. However, on the flip side of that coin, all of the good sandwich places we've gone to are open throughout the day.
Yes. Okay.
But I think like when we that was an amazing lunch, because I only say that too because even Trastevere, there's a couple of restaurants that are really famous, and all of them have a line out the door by like 6:50 because they don't open till 7.
Absolutely. Yeah, those people do take the nap time.
And Prati, where like outside the Vatican City, basically. I know a lot of the nicer ones there will open, but I mean, like for lunch and then for dinner and not in between.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think it's nice though, because it also kind of I don't know, almost gives a little guidance to the dinner. Like it almost kind of gives like, I'm hungry, but things aren't open till like 7. So, it's only 6:30 now. Do we want to get a snack, aperitivo? Do we want to keep walking?
And we'll get into this more, but it is very normal and expected in Italian culture to go out for an aperitivo before dinner. So that's, usually an alcoholic beverage and light bites, like a little tiny, like finger sandwich size sandwiches, little chips, little taralli, which are kind of like crackers.
Yeah.
And olives, things like that. A little munch before dinner. You don't have to drink alcohol. You can totally get a soda, like Coke or juice or sparkling water, anything like that. So if you're feeling hungry but you want to be on the Italian dinner schedule, it is very normal to have an aperitivo not at a restaurant, at a bar cafe beforehand.
Yeah. And I think that on that note too, something I noticed, I spent a night in Naples just before I went back to the States a couple weeks ago, and I noticed that a lot of restaurants that were open like early, like kind of like weirdly, especially for Naples, like weirdly too early for dinner. They had people just having a beer out front, almost like that's all they were going to do. And I thought that was kind of fascinating because I'm kind of curious if it's worth it for them, because they're restaurants, they have menus in the whole 9 yards. But I was noticing that everyone was just having a beer or having a drink, no like snacks or anything. It was just like let's have a drink before we go have dinner somewhere. And this place looks nice. And again, by and large, all tourists, because they're all speaking English that everyone I saw.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting because
that is interesting. I haven't seen that before.
I had not seen it until this time. And I, to be fair, we have not been in Naples in a while, so it could be somehow
Napolitano.
Yeah, weirdly specific to people who speak English traveling in Naples, or even just the fact that like Napolitanos are not going to kick people out for that, and they might in Rome. They're like, "Oh, you're just here for a beer? You could take it to go."
Although I don't think they would.
No, probably not. But no, those are really good though. Those are things to avoid.
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Red flags, essentially.
Red flags. Okay. If you're gonna get in a relationship with food, here's some red flags.
Yeah. So let's move on to let's frame it this way. What would a meal cost going out to dinner in Italy? This is going to be super generic because so I think we want to talk about this because people are often flabbergasted by how cheap Italy is, especially when we're in the States and we're gawking at housing prices and food prices at the grocery store
and restaurant prices.
Restaurant prices, exactly. So if you're traveling here and you're not living here, if you're not cooking every night, you're going to spend a chunk of change on food. That's just the nature of it because you have to eat all of your meals out and you will be hungry. However, I think restaurant food in Italy is a lot cheaper than what a lot of people realize.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I think also depending on what you order and how you order it, if that makes sense. Not how you order it, but like, basically just what you order. I think. I mean, which may make sense. I'm rolling my eyes because that was a silly thing to say, but I guess I meant to like, and I think you're going to get into it in a second. But that whole idea of the antipasto, the primi, secondi, like how much you order, what you order. If you're in it for the whole, like, I want the whole Italian menu, or just like, I'm just here for a pizza.
Or a bowl of pasta.
Because it can get, pricey.
Yeah.
Like it can, but like, it doesn't have to be, especially if you're a traveler on a budget, it can absolutely be a very affordable thing to do. I'm going out to eat specifically.
So let's, so I don't forget about it. If you want to go out for pizza and you're we've been through this, y'all all know. If you've listened to any of our episodes, we tend to rant about how pizza is Napolitano. Pizza's from Naples. Pizza in other places is not as good. So just putting
sometimes
that
it's
out
not
there.
pizza; it's just flatbread.
Yes, but generally, in many places, you can order a pizza. Rome, Naples, in the South, a pizza for dinner is going to cost you, at the cheapest these days, probably €4.
Yeah, for margarita. Yeah.
Usually that's about 5 or 6 in bigger places, I would say. And then you could go all the way up to probably more than €10, but the fancier ones are like 8, 9, 10 euros.
They can get
for
like 15 depending on what the toppings are.
That's true. But those have like lots of toppings. And pizzas are personal. So that's like your personal meal price. You could get a decent pizza for dinner for probably around $6 in Naples and in Rome.
If I can add on to that really quickly, pizzas are also, we've mentioned this before, pizzas are typically only for dinner. By and large, any good pizzeria will not have their ovens hot for lunch. This is not like, across the board. Sometimes a good pizzeria will because they realize they have a lot of business and they're like, might as well. I think like Da Michele in Naples, the famous one, maybe even Sorbillo too, are open for lunch because they're like...
both opened up for lunch in like the last 10 years.
Yeah, which is crazy because, they were for 20-something years, they were only open for dinner. Because pizza is only... it takes a few hours to get the oven hot and then you have to sort of... you
have to maintain that heat.
Exactly. So it's always like, instead of starting at 2 PM, you have to start at 8 AM kind of thing. That was the first thing I wanted to mention. And the second is that one of like the best Napolitano pizza places in Rome, their margarita costs about €8. I say that because when you go to another restaurant and you see it costing 10 or 11 for a margarita, that's a pretty good indication that you're not going to be getting great pizza. And the sound, in Naples, if you're happening to go to Naples or something like that, again, the Da Michele, I think, is €5 for a margarita. Same with Sorbillo. Those are two of the best pizza places in Naples, two of the most famous at the very least.
And in Italy and the world.
But it can get cheaper than that. I think some of the smaller places will have 4 for a margarita. The reason I think I also wanted to just really press that point is because if you're on like the Amalfi Coast or like Cinque Terre and you get a pizza or something like that, or
Right.
something like that,
It's going to be more expensive.
yeah, for sure. And it's not uncommon to see like 12 euro margaritas and thinking,
Yeah.
I mean, because I think like, you and I in the States, it is 25 to share a pizza. So then it's like, oh, 12 a person isn't bad for, two personal pizzas. However, that is robbery for
Yes,
Italians.
it is.
So that's just, I think, like a big thing to pay attention to keep a watch out, keep an eye out for. Is that, yeah, like you really, I mean, if a margarita is more than 10, that's
bad sign.
and we're recording this, to be fair, in 2024.
Yes.
Because we've mentioned in the gelato episode 2-3 years ago, you should not spend more than $2.50 on a gelato. In Rome, that has now changed. Gelatos are now $3.50 starting price in most gelaterias in Rome. So some of this will change, of course, over time. But if you're going this summer, 2024, and you're seeing pizzas for more than 10 euros, that is probably a sign it's a bad place.
Yeah. So what you should expect is 5 to 8 euros. Yeah, I think
that's
we can agree on that. Yeah. For the base, margarita pizza,
which is,
and then they can go, up from there. Okay, so from there, because that's a cheap, lovely dinner. Let's briefly talk about the courses. We're not going to get into all of it. I think we'll do that in another episode. But briefly, the Italian courses are antipasto, which is an appetizer, primo, first plate, secondo, second plate, dessert, and then the
contorni.
But that comes out with secondo.
Well, yeah, but it's always in a separate part of the menu.
Okay, so secondo, contorni, and then dessert.
Yeah.
And digestivo. Digestivi, which come out right after dessert, which is the digestive, bitter, alcoholic beverages.
Okay.
Okay, so antipasto. What would you say an antipasto costs generally?
I think it depends, because you can get, like, most places have like even in the South or whatever you are, French fries here are like an antipasto.
That's true.
And you can get like $3, $4, sometimes $5.
But sometimes they're contorno. Sometimes they put them with like the fried potatoes in the contorno. But anyways,
yeah, that's a good point. No, they do a lot of like little fried things for an antipasto. You can do that kind of a charcuterie. I don't know, that's not the Italian word for it, but you can get like the meats and cheeses. But it really, I think it can depend. It can go from like a couple of euros all the way up to like 15, depending if you get a bunch, like a plate of meats and cheeses for the table.
That's my sense. Yeah, we very rarely get the antipasto.
Because a lot of we mentioned this 100 times before. We're vegetarian, so a lot of them tend to be meat.
Yes.
And then it's like we don't really spend money on like meat.
And it's also my sense, having gone out with people who do order the antipasto, that often those plates can be split.
Yes.
That's like a little munchie for the table sort of thing before you order your main plates.
Agreed. I think it's definitely like a sharing thing.
Yeah. So what did you say? 8 to 15?
Something like that. 3 to 15.
3 to 15? Okay. And then there's the primo, which is pastas. Pastas are usually, well, okay, actually you go first and then I'll say what I think they're going to cost.
I think in the South, like where we are in the South, a plate of pasta is 5 euros. In Naples, for instance, it might be 7 or 8. And then in Rome, it's a 9 if you're lucky, but up to 12 is a pretty fair price. Sometimes a little bit more expensive than that if you go to a nicer place. But really, like 15 is the most you should be spending on a plate of pasta. But I think you and I, if I could be wrong, you're going to possibly correct me, but I think like 10 is where you and I look for a plate of pasta. Because at a certain point too, like we're talking about, it's pasta, y'all. It's like, you can make that at home. And I mean, it's good. It's very good. It's always, I mean, I think we've always had a really good pasta when we're out. It's just, it's pasta. And it's 50 cents for the bag of pasta. And it's $1 for the toppings. Something like that.
Yeah.
I think.
I think those are remarkably accurate prices. Yeah. I think you killed it on the prices.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I will say, I'm going to try to find it for y'all because I don't like to recommend places and then not have the actual name. But I went to a restaurant in a pastificio, which means they make the pasta there. A restaurant in Rome the other night when Nathaniel's flight was delayed. I was having dinner by myself, having a little singles night, had a little glass of wine, a little bowl of pasta.
I also had a singles night on the airplane. Or was it that night I had 3 bottles of water for dinner? In
I
London?
think that was that night, yeah.
Oh, okay. But no, you had a lovely night that night.
I did.
You sent me pictures.
Yeah, and so my plate of pasta, because I was trying to be budgety, but also treating myself. So I had a bowl of pesto pasta where the pasta was made in-house. I got to choose between two different kinds of pasta. This is a quick aside. We can go into, pasta feature later, but essentially when a pasta is made in-house, sometimes you can choose between, like the two kinds of pasta. It's going to be which pastas traditionally work with that sauce. So you can't just go wild and choose anything. But, they gave me two options since I chose the pesto. But that was €9. And then I had a hefty glass. Well, I say hefty. I think I do half pours at home. I realized, but it was a nice glass of wine for €5. And I thought that was really affordable, and it was very, very nice. It was all made in-house.
And one of the other places we've actually mentioned as a pasta ficio in a couple episodes, specifically our Rome episodes, is the Pasta Ficio Guerra, I think is what it's called. Mm-hmm. And that's just around the corner from the Spanish Steps. I think it's $4.50 for a serving of pasta. There is nowhere to sit. You have to stand to eat it. And it's a pretty, you and I split the portion of pasta they give us.
Yeah, it's a big portion.
And if you eat there, you get a free glass of wine. But that's, again, it's like the all in an attempt to sell their dried pasta. But the pasta ficios typically, again, it's one of those traditional things. It's like, it's quite cheap pasta, but they can also make it for you with the sauce. And then it's a little bit more expensive, but it's almost always cheaper than a restaurant.
Yeah. And so typically, like originally a pasta ficio is just a business where they make the fresh pasta. Mm-hmm. You go buy it and you make it at home. Mm-hmm. Where we are in the South, that's what a pasta ficio is still. Pasta ficio Guerra, they sell, like you said, they're dried pastas. I don't think they sell fresh pastas.
I don't think so either, yeah.
And it's standing only in the restaurant, but it's really good. And now lots of people know about it, so there's probably a line out the door, but it's very good. It's very fun. The pasta ficio I went to, I don't think they sell any dried pastas, but they sell lots of fresh pastas that you can just, pick up. I think it's like 11 a kilo.
Oh, wow.
To pick up.
That's not bad.
Yeah, fresh pastas, take it home. Or you can eat there, and it's a lovely sort of contemporary small restaurant vibe. I did look it up. It's called macarone.
Nice.
I know you asked me where I ate that night, and I was like, I don't know. I think it was called macaroni or macaroon.
Oh my God,
and you laughed at me.
That's right, because I was like macaroni. I'm like, you're only American in Italy eating at macaroni.
Macarone, il pasta ficio. Yeah, really funny. It's really good.
Well, I think we also, and then we can stop talking about pasta. I apologize, everybody.
We got off on a tangent.
We really did, but we have mentioned also, even in the Rome episodes, on the Testaccio market. In Rome, there's a couple. I think there's two different pasta features there, and again, it's the same system. There's a bunch of pasta. You go there, you say, I want that pasta, and they say, we have three sauces today. We have pesto, we have like carbonara, and we have marinara. Which one would you like? And so it's especially if you're like somebody on a budget, and even if you're not, but if you're on a budget, I only mention that because sometimes because $9 isn't bad, but I imagine that included the sitting fee. So I imagine if it was one of those places you could take it to go, it would only be like $6 or $7. Mm-hmm. And so I think basically those are quite cheap places to eat if you're looking
and filling and nourishing.
Yeah, if you're looking to be budget
fresh.
Conscious. Yeah. And that's a primi basically. All primis are pasta.
Yes. And on that note, a specific note for the primo, for the pasta, it is typical to just order that. And then that's all of your dinner. Mm-hmm. You don't have to order the whole menu. It's very normal to just order the pasta. You can also certainly order any course, and that can be all of your dinner. Yeah. That's totally fine.
We've ordered just a couple contorni, which are sides before, and that's dinner. We've ordered just a pasta before. Some people are nervous, like, I have to order one from each thing, and you don't. And even though sometimes they'll have a menu that's like, if you get antipasto and a primi, a secondi, and a contorni, and a dolce, and a this and a that, it's only €38 or something like that. You could just order one thing and
absolutely.
Call it a day.
Yeah, don't feel pressured to buy one of everything.
Yeah, don't eat more than you need to.
Yes. Okay, so we've been through the antipasto, which is the appetizer, the primo, which is the pasta dish.
And maybe risotto as well, I think, in the north.
Yes, pasta and rice dishes. Really good point. The secondo is often the meat. Mm-hmm. I think of it as vegetables, but you're right. That's the contorni. They go together in like when they come out to the table, but they are different. So the secondo is all of the meat dishes.
Yeah.
And again, we'll go through all of this in another episode, but be aware that when you order a meat dish, it's just the piece of meat.
Yes.
Like if you order a piece of grilled chicken, you will get an empty plate with a piece of grilled chicken on it.
Well, actually, just so I may, like the trip to Naples I took, I went with my mother. It was a lovely trip. She dropped me off at the airport. And that night we were like trying to find a place for dinner. So she contacted a friend who had a friend in Naples, blah, blah, blah. We go to this restaurant. It was great. I had pizza. She had sausage. 2 pieces of sausage come to the table on a plate. And I think there was like a little bit of like a little slice of lemon on the side because like we need something.
Yeah.
But that was it. It's a plate with 2 just like Italian sausages and a piece of lemon. There's no sauce on the sausages. There's no, seasonings. There's no side. There's no bed of arugula or bed of, kale. There's nothing. It is just
sausage.
Yeah, it's like what you make at home. 2 pieces of sausages on a plate if you're feeling lazy. That's it.
And some of them do come with sausages, but sausages.
I hope so.
Some of them do come with sauces, but it will say that on the menu. Like specific meat dishes will come with a sauce or gravy or whatever, or mushrooms or something. But it will say that on the menu.
Yeah.
It won't just show up with like you're saying, a bed of greens and a little spicy
it won't
thing
look
on
cute,
top.
Basically.
It will not look cute.
But that's also a good sign that the food's probably good because if it looks cute, then, and I think that's something if I may mention really quickly, if because the contorni also come on a separate plate. And the contorni, sometimes those will be combined into one plate. By the way, like sometimes if you get a couple, like I want the grilled eggplants and I want the grilled zucchini and I want the grilled peppers. They'll probably all come on a large plate, rather than like 3 separate plates.
Yeah, potentially.
Well, because something like even like the Trecento and a couple other places we've gone to, when you order it, they just all come. Or even the place we just ate lunch at in Rome, it all just comes in one giant plate.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking those will all come in the same plate, but pretty much never should your meat and contorni, your sides, come on the same plate.
And never should your meat and pasta and vegetables come on the same plate. There's a restaurant in
the one in Trastevere?
In Trastevere, yeah. It's like super popular.
Yeah.
Lines out, big line out the door every time we go by.
Yeah, they got a really good Instagram game.
Yes, but that's what it is. It's their Instagram game because all their food, which looks okay, but it all comes out on the same plate. It's only tourists eating there.
Yeah.
Kudos to their Instagram game, but it is not authentic.
Yeah, and that's just, again, it's one of those things where like, well, is it okay? It's still okay food. It's just, it's that sort of like, Italians have a, like, as just you mentioned just with the pasta, like Italians have a lot of respect for the way a dish is supposed to be made.
Absolutely.
So they will not make like, I don't know. It's like sometimes they just won't put certain sauces in, like gorgonzola and like blue cheese and walnuts and radicchio, which is like I think it's radicchio in English. To be honest, it's just like red.
The red cabbage.
Yeah, red cabbage.
Well, but it's not red cabbage. It's radicchio. Yeah.
But that's a dish, and usually comes with the chunky pasta, and it's usually like orchetti or something else. But you'll never see it with spaghetti. You'll never see it with like penne. You'll never see it with other types of chunky pasta, except the 1 or 2 that it always comes with.
So many of the Italians we know will not make a certain dinner. Like if we go over to their house and they were planning on something, they're like, oh, I don't have the right shaped pasta. We'll have to make something else.
And they just, it's
like
not like
you can't mix it up. Certain pastas go with certain sauces and things. Like you got to make sure it's the right consistency. If it's a saucy thing, you got to have the pasta that'll soak up the sauce. Like
it is so strict, and that's all we say. Like, so it's if it's your first or second time in Italy, and you're like, I really want a traditional experience. I really want to explore good food. I really want to find good food. Then it's all of this is simply to kind of guide you on that path. It's not to say like these restaurants that put the same food on the same plate as terrible restaurant. It's just that's Olive Garden, and you can get that in the States. That maybe not. You might have an Olive Garden near you, but like
chances are you do.
Chances are you do. But that's kind of like the made for Americans or made for European Westerners really. That's not necessarily how food comes in Italy, and that's just something I want to be like, because I realize we do sound elitist when we come to food, but it's not you so much me. I think it's my fun condescending tone that I have sometimes. When I get excited, I realize I get either condescending or something else, but I always get like, it's always something.
I think I do sometimes come off as sounding exclusive, but what I want to impart to all of you is that there's so much opportunity to eat such wonderful food here. And chances are, if it's really good, it's authentic. Not that it has to be. I think I overuse that word, but there's so much food that is so affordable and accessible, that is super fresh and made by people who are really passionate about it. That, like, if you can, I feel like why not eat there? If you don't want to, don't.
Exactly.
Like, totally, you don't have to. But it's there. So if you want that experience, it is accessible to you.
Yes.
It's not just for elite, wealthy people.
100%. That's a good way of putting it.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the secondo, the meat. We didn't talk about. We don't eat meat, but how much do you think a meat dish costs?
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. I think 15 roughly.
I'm thinking 12 to 15.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair. A piece of maybe some sort of piece of steak would go up for like 17 possibly. But I'd
There's
say
a chance that a piece of grilled chicken is slightly less.
yeah, fish tends to be less. Beef tends to be more. Pork kind of in the middle. Like you can get 2 sausages for like, $10 sometimes though.
Yeah.
Yeah. More usually, almost always, the secondo is more expensive. Like the meat is more expensive than the pasta.
Yes, expect the secondo to be more expensive than the primo. The meat is more expensive than the pasta, like you said. And the contorno is one, contorni is many, more than one, are the cheapest. So those are basically the vegetables. And it's usually like a leafy green cooked to death.
Yes.
Because I should say Southern Italians. Maybe it's all Italians, but Southern Italians cook their greens and their vegetables like Southern Americans do. Yes. They are cooked to death.
The only difference though is Southern Americans like to boil everything. Like I'm thinking of collard greens, are steamed, but like it's boiling it. But
the greens here are blanched and then sautéed.
Yeah. So they blanch them to kind of get the consistency soft, and then they sort of fry them in oil. And salt and garlic usually.
Little pepperoncino, spicy pepper.
But like dandelion greens, broccoli, leafy broccoli greens, not like the broccoli heads. Yeah.
Usually roasted potatoes will be on there. Typically those will not have any seasoning.
Yeah, but they're good.
Oh, they're lovely. I'm just thinking for people like my mom.
Yes, they're just salted. Yeah.
It's just like a salted potato. Don't be too scared of it. It should be just salted potato. Sometimes, like we said earlier, the French fries will be on that in that area. They tend to be somewhat seasonal, generally.
Yes.
Often that's because that's how people buy things here, but usually they are somewhat seasonal. Little vegetables, and like Nathaniel said before, if you order the potatoes, it's going to come as a small plate of just potatoes.
Yes, exactly. And I mean they're delicious, but just don't expect a lot, or don't expect anything with them.
Yeah. How much would you say a contorno costs?
I would say 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
I was thinking
maybe
4 to 6.
4 to 6. I think that's a good range. Yeah. It might go up to 8, depending again, nicer restaurants or touristy areas.
Yeah.
But and I think one thing we've found almost across the board is that contorni will all cost the same. Typically,
yes.
The vegetables and the potatoes and whatever. And sometimes there's mixed greens, like mixed salad greens on the menu. Rarely, typically more at more touristy than non-touristy restaurants. But I think everything's like 5 or 6. So it's almost always the same price.
Right. And then last is dessert. I have no idea what dessert costs.
Well, if I may very quickly though, it's fatta in casa is like fatta. In casa is like made in house.
Yes.
If they probably speak English, you'll be fine. But I only say that because a lot of dessert here it's almost common that a company or like a company, not like a giant broad sense, but like a small business will make desserts and sell them to restaurants. So they'll have like the tiramisu, and they'll have the little tartufo is what they're called. These are like chocolate mounds, and they have the lemon. Mounds, I don't know what they're called.
Delizia
limone, yeah. Sometimes
which is
they'll have,
lovely.
Yeah, they're great. Gelato, but again, that's like they got it from a gelateria. Tiramisu. Sometimes it's made in house, sometimes it's not.
But oftentimes, even if it's made in house, obviously, number one for me. I always try to go for made in house. But if it's not made in house, often, fingers crossed, it should be made by a local pasticceria, pastry place, somewhat nearby. And sometimes they will have, this is what I don't like. I mean, people like them, it's fine. I'm not criticizing. If you want to eat it, go for it. But I don't like it, is the little frozen tartufo, which is like the little mound, kind of looks like a little boob.
Yes, it does. That's a good way of putting it.
Little mound in different flavors, and you can choose, but they've all been frozen, and they're just like it's like a little frozen.
It's what you can kind of get at the grocery store.
Exactly.
And actually, one big sign, if I may, is a separate dessert menu that has pictures and that is not branded with the restaurant name. Because that's something we've seen a lot, is like we'll get there and then they'll bring the dessert menu and it's like, Costiera Pasticceria, like the Coast pastry place or something. And there'll just be pictures of their desserts and prices and a little description of them. But it's not by the restaurant, it's by the company.
And it seems like most of the time those are frozen desserts.
Yes.
They are typically not fresh made that day.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I think part of it too is like, I think in America, like you either have like sort of the Chili's and Applebee kind of end places where it's like everything's kind of packaged already, or you have the sort of a little higher end where they have a pastry chef. And there's a middle thing for like the sort of mom and pop restaurants where it's like, you know, someone made a pie, someone made a cake, that kind of thing. I'm thinking like the barbecue place or dad, like some like there's that
I'm
one.
thinking of the burger place that we like.
The burger place, they always have like a cake and a pie.
House, yeah.
But it's not, I would be willing to guess too, they don't have a pastry person. They have like, one of them does that, but also has like some other job.
Yes.
But all that is to say is I don't think it's that common in Italy, at least at most restaurants, to have a pastry person. It's just, do you want a pastry? We have one pastry. If it's made in house,
or it's like our mom made it, and it's the grandma made it at home and brought it into the restaurant.
That is just honestly as likely,
and that's the best.
Yeah,
the best kind.
That is the best kind.
Fatta nonna.
Oh, fatta nonna, sì.
Yeah, made by grandma.
Made by grandma.
Okay, so last one after the dessert. If you like drinking, is the oh my gosh, what's it called? Digestivo. Thank you. Which are small shot glass sized drinks. They are not for taking shots.
Yes,
it's
they're for sipping.
And they're all things that will help you digest. So there's like usually an Amaro, which is a bitter, herbal, dark
like
liquid.
Jägermeister, basically.
Yes.
That's a good example for Americans who know what that is, but not what Amaro is. Or Fernet. That's a big one now.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say it's not for Jaeger shots.
It's not for Jaeger shots. But I was thinking Fernet is because of gaining popularity in America. So it's Fernet's and Amaro.
And then limoncello is a big one, which is also digestive. And at many local places, after the dessert, or even if you don't have dessert, you could have a digestivo. You don't have to have dessert. Often they'll bring around a bottle or several small bottles for you to serve your own digestivo, and that is often free if they bring it to the table. Or what would you say is a good indication? If
it used to be like, I know, because like 10 years ago, 9 years ago, it used to be kind of a rule of thumb is if they offer you digestivo, cafe, then it's on the house. If you ask for it, you're paying for it. It has changed since then when it's like kind of like, because upselling was not a thing. It's still not a thing in Italy, but especially at restaurants. It wasn't like, you guys want this, you guys want that. It was always just like, if they're offering something, it usually means they're paying for it. They being the restaurant. So they would come over. And I think a lot of times too, those are just considered, what another word, but like loss leaders, I think, you know, like, we spent $15 on a bottle of alcohol, maybe 10 because we got it from a supplier. And, it was enough for 80 guests. It was perfect, or whatever. I have no idea. They have tiny little shot glasses. Sometimes they're all made in house too. But I don't know. Like, that's a big thing. I would also say potentially, and this kind of leads maybe into one of your later points, if you're paying in cash, there's a better than 0% chance that they'll kind of waive the digestivo or waive the coffee if you get a coffee.
I see what you're saying.
There's always that little. And again, this is more for smaller restaurants than larger. Like, larger ones are ones that are very much like touristy magnets, things like that.
Yeah, they're probably going to charge you.
Absolutely, nickel and diming. But the smaller ones where it's kind of like, I think a lot of small restaurants have that idea, like, we need to make $20 per person. Once we've gotten that, we're fine. Like, if it's 24, we'll just charge them 20. We give them the free alcohol. It's fine. So I think that's what we've noticed. But I think there's unfortunately no real way to find out until you're inside.
I would say be prepared to pay for it. But then when you don't have to, that's happy,
But it's kind of an old school, because I know that it used to be, again, years ago, I haven't been to Greece, but I heard that in Greece, they like, if you wanted wine, they bring a bottle to the table with like a rubber band. Yeah. And you drink as much as you want. And then when they leave, they measured where the rubber band was and is, and they charge you just for that. That's not how it works in Italy with the alcohol. No. You can finish the bottle if you want to. But again, it's more of like
of the digestivo?
Of the digestivo,
yeah. I mean, it's not...
Don't.
Yeah, vibe it out. Probably don't do that. Yes.
Yeah, very much personal responsibility.
And respect for the restaurant.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I think that's like even one of the ones we went into in Rome, we were passing it down to us, having little things. And
because they only had like one bottle for the whole restaurant, so they were just passing it table to
like
table.
Taking it off some tables and bringing it to other tables.
But then the place we went in...
Siena, yeah.
Yeah, Siena. We should look up the name because I can't talk about how great they are enough. But they had several little...
Diversi, I think.
Diversi, yes. They have magnets they gave us for free.
Yes, magnets.
So cute. But their digestivi were made in house, it seems like, just by the taste and the presentation, but you can tell by the taste. And they were like drink what you want to.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
it's
very clear.
fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And if you want something else, we'll charge you for it.
Yeah.
And we got, I think, one or two other ones for your mom to taste them to kind
Yeah.
of just because she doesn't really drink, but she's like, I like the limoncello. And we're like, you want to try other ones? But no, I think it's a good.
Let's
that's a good
get
point.
crazy, Mom.
Yeah,
That's what we did. Responsibly.
Responsibly got crazy.
With lots of water.
Yes, hydrate. Oh, that's the other thing. Actually, can I mention that real quick?
Yes, thank you.
So water at restaurants is not a free thing like it is in the States. I do not know what it's like in England. I know we have some English listeners. Thank y'all. I don't know what it's like in Australia either. But I don't know why I even mentioned all that. But my point
I don't know
is,
what it's like in any other part of the world.
good point. As an American, we get free water. We get, we come to the table. It's almost immediately, here's some waters. What else can I get for you guys? That's not the case in Italy. You only get what you order. So if you want some water, sorry, I say water like I'm from New York because I'm from New York. If you would like some water, then you have to order it. And it usually comes still and sparkling. Typically you can order a small personal bottle, half a liter, or a larger 1 liter or 1.5 liter bottle.
Oh, I feel like usually it's the 1 to 1.5 liter for the table.
Well, sometimes they just bring those little tiny bottles. If it's like, we're out of the big ones, we'll just bring 2 small
That's
ones.
weird. Usually it's the big bottle.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a big bottle. But
And that's like split for the table. You don't both need to order water.
yes, for sure.
Oh my gosh, not to talk about Instagram again, but I did see a very cute video of these little Italians talking about how awkward it is to, when the waitress comes by and asks, what kind of water do you want? Frizzante or naturale? So like the flat water or the fizzy water. And they all look at each other,
yeah,
like
exactly. Like, what do you guys want? Because I don't want,
Right, exactly. So typically, that is to say, those bottles are split.
Yes, and they're not expensive. I think, the most you'll pay should be $2.50.
Yeah.
It should be really $1 or $1.50, but again, touristy restaurants like to upcharge on things like that. But it's also, again, I throw this as, I drink a lot of water, I think, when I go out to eat, just because it's a nice thing to do with my hands. And in America, I'm just sucking down water. But here, I can't, because you don't get refills either. So it's like, if you have 3 bottles of water, they're charging you for 3 bottles of water.
Yes.
And that's just something I wanted to briefly mention, because I realized that, if you're not ordering anything to drink, you're not getting anything to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a pretty good rule of thumb.
Okay, so just to sum all of that up for prices, because I think pricing is very important to understand, you could probably spend as little as 10 euros per person going out to eat. If you're only getting like a plate of pasta or 2 contorni, some potatoes and some greens, you could probably spend around 10 to 15 euros at a affordable restaurant. You can also spend 20, 30, 40 a person.
Yes.
At the same restaurants if you're getting more plates.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And then there's the coperta.
Okay.
So the coperta is the per person cover charge for eating there, for sitting at a table. What is it, like 3 euros?
I think 3 is a pretty safe bet. Like, I mean,
Okay.
we've spent everyone between 150 and 5.
Okay.
5 is very much in the high end range. 150 is kind of like, that's really low.
What y'all doing? You could have more money.
Yeah, exactly. It almost is kind of like, you can think of like a tip, basically. It just covers the linen charge kind of thing. It covers the sitting fee, as you mentioned. It kind of just covers that, like, I think it's Coperta's cover, but I think it's, somebody explained it to us. It's supposed to be like a way to pay for cleaning the linens and cleaning the silverware and cleaning the napkins and things. And yeah, so that's per person. And again, that's one of those things, you have a family of 4, it doesn't matter the age, you're paying $3.50 a person. So all of a sudden you're looking at $14, I think, 14 euros.
On top of your original.
Thing,
your
yeah.
food costs, yeah.
And that's an important thing to keep in mind, I think. And if I may, on the cost, because you do mention, 10 euros, and people might be listening like, ooh, 10 euros, I could still eat out like in America for cheaper than that. You absolutely can that's at a restaurant, because there are
Yes.
like tavolo calda, like hot tables is what they're called, and they serve basically hot food, like a variety of hot food. Sometimes they'll have it'll be the same place that has pizza. They'll have pizza on one hot side, and then like like roast chicken and roast potatoes and just a bunch of different kinds of food.
We should do an episode on the difference between a tavola calda and osteria and enoteca, like all the different words for
Places to eat.
Yeah.
100%.
Because sometimes like the pizza Italio, which can sometimes be at the tavola calda, like the same restaurant, those are like faster meals. The tavola
Yes.
calda can be like slow. I mean, we ate at one the other day for lunch.
Yeah, it's great.
We had a lovely slow lunch.
An hour-long lunch. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And it's the same place you can come in and grab a slice of pizza and run out kind of thing. It's also, a lot of them tend to be open for dinner, and you will see people there splitting a bottle of wine and having dinner.
Yes.
It's not as cute as restaurants tend to be, but they are so much cheaper because there's no table service. There's typically no coperta. It's just you tell them what you want. They put it all on the same plate. This is the only time you might see.
It's like the old school. It's not even old school. I remember going to places like in Savannah, in the States. We had this place called Piccadilly, which I'm sure was a chain, but it was like this little like not diner, but cafeteria. There we go.
But we have I was gonna say cafeteria is another one of those words. Yeah.
But a cafeteria style where you just go pick out like your meat in 3 and they slop it on your plate. They don't slop it on your plate.
But
It's
yeah,
cute.
exactly.
Little spoonfuls on your plate you move through. That is a bit like what a tavola calda is.
Exactly.
You pick your different items and they put them all.
And they're all weighed.
Yeah,
So they're all kind of like, I mean, it's not like, oh, I want the big piece. If you get the big piece of chicken, they'll just charge you for the big piece instead of the small piece. But those are typically, because you and I can eat at those. I mean, we had a huge portion of food at the one we went to for lunch. And I think it was 17 euros.
For 2 people.
For 2 people, which is really, and that was included a bottle of water. And that's really not bad. I mean, that's included the pizza, all the vegetables, the 2 pizzette, the bottle of water. So the food was, I mean, without even all the pizza, it was probably only like 13 euros. 14
wow.
euros.
That's not bad at all. That was lovely.
Yeah. So that's all to say, if you're really on a budget, Tavolo Calda is where it's at. Not necessarily restaurants, unfortunately. But I think that's everything for restaurants, yeah?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I wanted to talk about, tipping. Tipping is not a thing. Do not tip people. People are paid a living wage. Here in Italy, people go to a university to learn how to work in cafes and bars and restaurants. Like, it is a real, I mean, doing that in the States is obviously a real job, but it's not looked very highly on typically in my experience.
But it's also like, the idea is, I think in the States, somebody who's untrained in anything could be a server.
Right.
But somebody here has to go to college for it.
Yes. And here they are paid a wage.
Yes.
It's not in the States where you make $2 an hour and then you rely on tips.
Yeah.
Here they are paid a living wage. They should be. So you do not need to tip.
And also, I think, and that goes the other way, if you're wondering like why sometimes the service might be bad, it's because they are not relying on your goodwill for their money. They are, and I think we mentioned this in another episode, they are trying to please their boss, not you.
Yes.
So because you were not their boss, they're more concerned with, if their boss is like, we need to get more food out of this kitchen, or we need to do this, or you need to stop paying attention to that table and start taking these other tables. That's what they're going to be doing.
Yeah. Often, typically, our experience has been that at the restaurants where the waiters and waitresses aren't like overly nice to you. They're just like, here's your food. What else do you need? Nice enough, but they're getting on with their day. Those are the best restaurants.
Yes.
They are there to know what the menu is, to ask you what you want, to bring you your food, to help out the kitchen.
If you feel hated, you're at the right place.
Yes, exactly.
That's been our experience. If we feel like we were, overtly despised by the server, nailed it. The food is going to be amazing. But I think it's a really good point, because that is I don't know, just the idea is that basically they're working and they're not necessarily there for you. They are, I guess what I want to basically tie it in with is that in the States, you are expecting the person to come by to chat with you a little bit, to let you know about the menu. Here's the specials for the day.
Make you feel good about yourself.
Exactly. There's a little bit of like, oh, how are you guys doing? You're from in town? You're from out of town? Oh my God, we're going to be friends by the end of this. And you're having fun. And you're cracking jokes and this and that. And then they serve the food and they come by. How is it? Is everything good? That is not how it is in Italy.
Nope.
They will come over once to take your order. They will come back again to drop off the drinks. They'll come by a third time to drop off the food. You will never see them again until you want the check.
Yeah.
They will not come over to ask how things are. They won't come over to make jokes.
You can politely flag them down if you need like an extra glass of wine or want to order something else. That's okay.
Yes, for sure. But I think the expectation in Italy is if you need something, you ask for it.
Right,
but
because they don't want to interrupt you while you're having conversation.
Yes.
Like in the States, I think it's expected that people come over and check on you frequently. But here the expectation is when you're having dinner and you're having a great conversation, you don't want to be interrupted.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good way, succinct way of putting it. I think that ties into paying.
Yeah, so our last thing to quickly finish up on this is how to pay. And it's a bit of a vibing it out situation. So there's basically 3 ways to pay at a restaurant. One is that when you're finished eating, you will just go up to what is essentially the host stand and pay there. And they just know what you've eaten based on your face and your table number.
It's amazing. You don't have to say anything. They're just like, okay, I know what you got. Don't worry. And I'm like, oh, do you really? It's amazing.
The second is that someone will bring a bill to your table and then you take that bill to the host stand.
Yes.
And that's where you pay. The third is that they bring the bill to the table and you pay at the table. It kind of just depends. A good indicator is that if there is not a host stand, then you can't pay there. So you'll probably be paying at the table. But it's kind of hard to know. That's one of those things that we always just watch to see what other people do.
I would say you just kind of, and I think that's a good rule of thumb for anything we talk about in Italy. Before anything, just see what other people are doing with a lot of this stuff. But like, especially I think paying the bill, just, if you notice somebody finished before you, see what happens. Do they flag down the server? Do they just, because sometimes you just go up. Like as soon as you're done, you just go up to the stand and pay. And those are the most confusing places for us because we just wait. Like I'd rather get yelled at by the waiter or the server that we're like, if he's like, no, you don't pay here. Go, just go. And then I'm like, that's fine. I feel good about that. But I don't want to leave. And they're like, where are they going? They are just stealing this food. But also I think there's a lot of trust. I will say there's a lot of trust. And that's what's so strange. Yeah.
I have one warning. If you see a group of people get up and leave in the middle of their dinner and don't pay, that's not the situation. You don't not have to pay. They're going for a smoke.
Yes.
It's so common here. So they'll like get up between two courses.
To go for a smoke.
But usually if it's a big group of people, the whole group will get up together, leave all of their stuff, just go have a smoke for like 20, 30 minutes or something sometimes. And then come back and commence their eating.
Yeah, that's actually kind of wild because I think the first few times they're like, are they just like dashing on the bill?
I know,
it's crazy.
Skip out on the bill or is there like some secret way of paying here? No.
It is just they're smoking. I think that's, I was trying to think there was like something else. And the tipping, I think the only thing I wanted to mention was just, I've noticed online a few times, especially like the Rome subreddit and stuff, people are heavily coerced, maybe not forced, but heavily coerced into tipping.
At certain restaurants?
Yeah, like a lot of touristy restaurants. Some people are like,
that's not cool.
Like somebody grabbed my arm and was like, you can't leave without tipping.
No,
and really like aggressive. And again, a lot of it is you do not have to tip. You just be like, no, goodbye, thank you. Like, and it's sometimes too, like the one guy mentioned that they no, it's just like they were trying to get like 20% tip or something like that. And it's that's what you owe us. You owe us a tip and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you don't tip in Italy. The Italians do not tip. It has never been a tipping culture.
That's an indication of like the people who run the restaurant are doing it wrong. That is not on you. That's not how they should be running the restaurant.
Yeah. And then on that note, just as a very last thing too, sometimes you will see like if you try to pay with a card, they'll ask you if you have cash, or they'll ask you if you could pay part of it with card, part of it with cash. And I only want to go ahead and like put your fears to rest. That's just like a tax evasion thing.
Let me put your fears to rest.
Yeah.
It's only tax evasion.
And I don't think it affects you though, dear listener.
That's just them trying to pay fewer taxes.
You don't really know what's going on, and you can't really be in trouble for them not paying their taxes.
No,
essentially,
not.
If they just take cash in, and sometimes you'll see people do it smart. Like if it's an €89 bill, they'll charge you 80 on the card and ask for cash 9. So then just skim it a little off the top. Sometimes you get stupid and then they'll charge like 10 to the card and then the rest in cash. And I'm like, how are you? No, you're going to get like, no.
You're going to get audited.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. But the reason I mentioned earlier with the drinks is if you pay in cash, sometimes it's one of those like greasing the wheels things. Just every once in a while, like if it's, €43 bill, they're like 40, you're fine with 40. And it's just like, they're just knocking off a little bit. And it's not 100%, again, this is not something to expect. It's just, unless you have like one of the credit cards that give you a huge amount of money cash back in a restaurant, paying with cash is a nice little way of like, signaling that you're like, if you guys want to cut out the drinks or something, not the drinks, like not the wine, but like the because as you mentioned, the digestivo, those are usually only like €2 each,
right?
Maybe $2.50 for the little shot glasses. So they're not cutting out much, but just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's good.
And then last but not least, very, 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 very briefly, do you want to do street food or is that another episode?
I think we should do that in another episode.
Another episode, we're going to do street food.
Saying that we're going to do something very, very, very briefly. Have we ever?
Not yet.
Okay. So let's plan on another episode.
We can do like a fun little, we can attach it onto something else.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was everything. I think
that's restaurants.
That hopefully, and I think in another episode we will talk about too, like, well, yeah, actually, if I may very quickly, bars is a toss-up whether you sit down and then order or order and then sit down. Restaurants are not a toss-up. You do talk to the host and then they sit you.
Yes, really good point.
Just as that, I know, like, sorry, I just wanted to throw that out there. I realized because, but just like I think in the States, there are sections, there are, it's a bit of a system. they won't necessarily sit you sometimes if the kitchen's backlogged, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't just sit yourself at a restaurant, unless of course it says please seat yourself. But by
we
and
have not
large,
seen that.
yeah, I don't think we've ever seen that.
One other thing, which is quite important, is it's a good idea to make a reservation.
Oh my God, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Typically, people will make a reservation the day of, hello, can we have a table for 8:30 tonight for 4 people? Because some restaurants can be deceptively empty, like in the afternoon or at lunch if
Or
they're
it's
open.
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, we'll come back in an hour and it'll be fine.
Right. Even if you show up at 7 o'clock and there's no one there, that might mean that all of the tables are booked.
Yes.
And people are showing up in 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes.
Yes.
So it's smart to choose a restaurant if you have the headspace. Choose a restaurant ahead of time and make a reservation the day of.
And something we like to do if you're going to be in a place for a while, like a couple nights, is scope out the restaurants near your hotel, because we've always found it's better to eat near the hotel and then kind of have a short walk back to the hotel rather than eating where you ended up on that day. Like if,
and then you're tired, you got to take a bus back. And then, exactly.
But we've always found like try to, and that goes to like booking your hotel. Like if you're going to book a hotel somewhere, it's not a bad idea to scope out some of the restaurants and try to kind of get reviews, because I know a lot of people like to stay near big, like I want to stay near the Coliseum, I want to stay near the, whatever. And then it's like, there are no restaurants that are going to be good and affordable over there. And then I think there was one other thing I was going to mention, and I can't remember what it was. It might not be that important. You said reservations. It can't be that important, right?
If it's important, we'll put it in the description.
Maybe not even that. We'll just hit it in the next episode.
Okay, we'll do that.
Cool. I think that's everything then.
That's it. That's restaurants, y'all.
That's restaurants. Yeah. Hopefully this helps you feel prepared. Feel inspired.
Yeah.
And not. I think a lot of this is to make you not afraid, I think, right?
Yes, because we were very afraid when we were first eating this country.
Yeah, because people are
shy little Americans.
Shy little Americans. I think sometimes Italian servers can be a bit gruff, typically.
Yes.
Just like.
Which means they love you.
Yeah, it's like across the board. They're just there's just a sense of just I don't want you here. Please leave. And that can be very off-putting the first few times. And I think that's everything. If I may, last one other thing was just sometimes there is not a menu, as we've seen at a couple restaurants. Yes. They'll just come by and ask what you want to start with and what you want to eat and stuff like that. You can ask for a menu, but sometimes it's like one of those mom and pop places where it's a very limited menu. Like, what do you mean? What's in the menu? It's cacio e pepe. It's carbonara. It's whatever it is. It's very basic stuff. That might be it. But thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. If you have questions, if there's something that you want to hear more about, all this month we're going to be talking about food. Please let us know what you have questions about, what you want to hear about. You can reach us at onlyabagofficial@gmail.com. You can contact us on Instagram at only_a_bag. And you can also go to our website at onlyabag.com.
We have a contact page. And if you like the episode, if you like the podcast, and if you like the cover, please leave us a rating, a review, a follow. We love all of it. If you'd like to thank Darcy for her lovely cover, you can do so. Or put your Instagram in the description. You can just be like, love the new cover. I'm very excited for this cover. I think it's great. That's everything, yeah?
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. All right,
thanks,
fantastic.
everybody, for listening.
Thank you so much, Darcy, for also setting the scene for us. It was beautiful.
You're so welcome.
I
it was
feel
a
like
nice
I am
bit of
now
theater.
in Rome.